Hello and welcome to the 2020 CSE Mentorship Program. My name is Alyssa Sandholm and I serve as a member of the CSE Alumni Board. On that board, I serve as the recording secretary on the executive leadership team as well as a member of the Student Engagement Committee. That committee is responsible for facilitating relationships between current U of M students and alumni from all over. One of the programs that we run is this mentorship program, and we help to facilitate, coordinate, test behind the scenes, and conduct the surveys that you see each year to make sure that this program is as positive as possible for each and every one of you. As a mentor myself, I have found this program to be personally enriching, and I have learned a lot from my mentees along the way, even as a mentor. So on behalf of the board, I want to personally thank you all for being a part of this program, especially this year where we've had to be very creative in how we connect with others. So I thank you for your patience and I thank you for your willingness to participate, and I hope you all have a great year.
Thank you, Alyssa. I am Andrea Hansen, Assistant Director of Events and Alumni Relations for the college, and I help run the CSE Mentor Program. I want to welcome everyone to the kickoff event for this year's CSE Mentor Program.
Hi, everyone. I'm Joelle Larson. I'm the Director of Alumni Relations for the College of Science and Engineering, and I work with Andrea on the Mentor Program. Sure, you've already seen our names in some of the email communications you've already received, and rest assured you'll see our names and more emails in the months to follow. I would like to echo everything Alyssa said, thanking you all for participating in the program this year, especially with the wild and crazy times we're living in. And I especially want to thank all of our alumni and friends for so generously giving their time to share advice and guidance with our students. We truly could not offer this program each year without your support, so thank you so much. I'm going to start us off by just briefly running us through our agenda for today, and then we'll get into the meat. So we've already handled welcome and introductions. Next, I'll cover some program expectations and guidelines. Then I'll go over a little bit about the Mentoring Partnership Agreement. Then I'll be turning things over to Andrea, who will lead us through a panel discussion featuring two of our mentor pairs from last year. And there will be time for audience questions. So if you have questions for the panelists, please put those in the Q&A. Then we'll round things out with some upcoming mentor program events, some resources that we hope will help all of you make the most of your time together this year. And finally, we'll share our contact information. You'll hear it many times tonight, but Andrea and I are here to support you in any way that we can. We want to ensure that you all have the best experience possible. So if you are ever running into any troubles or have questions, please do not hesitate to reach out to us. We're here to help, and we want to make sure that you all have the resources you need to get the most out of your partnership. So I'm going to start us off with a few program expectations. I'll keep it brief so we can get to the panel discussion quickly. First, I'd like to just start by talking a little bit about what this mentorship partnership is and what it is not. So a strong partnership will help a student to create a lasting professional network and gain access to an insider's perspective on hopefully what they want to be their future career. While a mentor won't provide students with all the answers or provide them with an internship or job, the mentor's job is really to help students to self-develop critical thinking skills and problem-solving skills, as well as to help them improve their professional communication skills. As I've mentioned, tonight you'll hear from two of last year's pairs, and they'll share some tips with you on how to create a strong partnership and to make the most out of your time together over the next 6 months. Strong partners stay engaged with one another, they think outside the box, they use mistakes as teaching opportunities, and they understand that the mentoring relationship is a commitment that requires effort on both sides to be successful. Especially this year, mentors, we ask that you be prepared to meet your students where they are and to support them in the different ways that they might need. Our program typically focuses on job search and internship type career-related topics. But this year, students might need support navigating online learning, dealing with stress and uncertainty, staying productive while learning from home, feelings of disconnection from their friends and community, and more. So we ask that both students and mentors please be open to the needs of the other and to adapt as circumstances throughout the year continue to change. Okay, let's jump into some program expectations. The document you see on your screen is part of the CSE Mentor Program Guide. It's a PDF handbook that you'll be able to find on the CSE Mentor Program materials page. We will share the link with you in an email with the recording of this program after the presentation, so it'll be easy for you to access. We don't have time to go through all of the program expectations tonight. In the interest of time, I'll highlight a few of what I consider to be the key ones, but I'd encourage you all to take a look more closely at that handbook that we've put together. We put what we consider to be the sort of most important resources to get things off to a strong start in that handbook. So I want to first really call out maintaining regular contact. Each year when we do our survey results at the end of the year, the number one reason we hear for people not achieving the goals they set out at the beginning of the year was that they did not stay in regular contact. So we ask that you be in touch with one another twice a month, and that can be in whatever means you choose. It could be video conference, emails, texts, chat, whatever you and your partner decide is fine. In a year when meeting in person is probably not in the cards for most pairs, we do encourage you to at least from time to time, especially at the beginning of your relationship, to try to meet by video conference. It's really so much better to be able to see your partner's face to help develop that trust and rapport when you can see some of the nonverbal communications that phone calls and emails just do not allow. And we do have some tips for meeting virtually also included in that PDF handbook I mentioned, if you're looking for any tips on how to make the most of this virtual way of learning and meeting with one another. We also would recommend that you set up a recurring video meeting if you want. So maybe like the first Monday of every month or something, you can schedule a recurring meeting right in Zoom. That's an easy way to do it. Or to schedule your next meeting at the end of the meeting you're currently having so that you always have something on the calendar and can stay in regular touch. And one thing I do want to make clear is that if you and your partner are comfortable doing so and you do want to meet with one another in person, that's fine. We would just ask that you follow all the Minnesota Department of Health and CDC guidelines when you do so. The next expectation I'd like to call out is setting clear and realistic goals. I'll talk a bit more about that when I discuss the partnership agreement in a moment. But each time you meet, you should be working towards something. Next, I'd like to call out be responsive. This is to both your partner, but also to Andrea and I if we reach out to you. Please reply to phone calls, emails, or any communications you get in a timely manner. And if you know you're going to be out of pocket for a while, so for example, students during winter break, or mentors, if you know that you have a busy couple of weeks at work when you're going to be slow to respond, let your partner know that so that they're aware and you can plan around that. Next, I'd like to mention honoring commitments. This program runs through April, and by being here tonight and selecting a mentor, you have agreed to participate in the program for the duration of the program. If that changes and you absolutely cannot continue to participate, please let Andrea and I know right away, as well as your partner. And finally, we'll ask that you participate in a year-end evaluation. As Alyssa mentioned in her welcome remarks, the Student Engagement Committee helps us review those survey results every year, and we make improvements to the program based on those survey results to make it the best we can for both mentors and students. We take your feedback extremely seriously, so please take the time at the end of the program to share with us how things went and what we can be doing better to support you and make this program the most meaningful experience it can be. And a final thought I wanted to share about expectations is that while we typically encourage students to drive this experience and take the lead in scheduling meetings, planning meeting agendas, and setting goals, we understand that this year especially, students have a lot on their plates and it's a very stressful time, and that they may need more support from their mentors as a result. So mentors, if you haven't heard from your student when you expect to, please reach out and follow up. Everyone gets busy and needs reminders from time to time. So that's all I'm going to say about program expectations. Again, I'd encourage you to take a look at that handbook in more detail and to let Andrea and I know if you have questions. But for now, let's move on to the mentoring partnership agreement. So for those of you who've been part of the program in the past, you'll notice that the partnership agreement looks a bit different this year. We've significantly streamlined it and made it really focused on goal setting. So you can download the agreement at csc.umn.edu/mentor materials. And again, we'll include a link in the follow-up email. And I know Andrea spoke about this in the new student training, so I'm just gonna briefly cover it here. So what is it and what's it for? The agreement is simply designed to make sure expectations and goals are clear and set out on both the mentor and student side right from the beginning. So you both have a roadmap of where you're going and what you're going to want to work on over the next 6 months. We ask that you fill it out as specifically as possible so that when you meet, you can be working towards your goals as opposed to talking about what those goals might be and how you might work towards them in the future. We want to make sure your meeting time is as efficiently used as possible. You'll see that we've structured it around setting SMART goals. If you're not sure what those are, a great place to look is that PDF handbook where we've outlined what all the SMART means in SMART goals, as well as provided some examples that might help you get started. And one thing that we want to encourage is that goals not be limited to finding a job or internship, but think outside the box about setting goals around skills like stress or time management, improving confidence, strengthening public speaking skills, or other transferable skills the students may not always have an opportunity to develop in the classroom. And one question we frequently get is, once we've turned this partnership agreement in, are we stuck with those goals all year? And the answer is absolutely not. This can be a living document and should work for you and your partner. So please feel free to reevaluate it as necessary, make changes to your goals, and keep it relevant for you and what you want to work on. If you do make changes, you don't need to provide us with a new copy of the agreement. Once you've turned in that initial agreement to us, it's a document for you to use together. So please feel free to update it as needed. And the final thing I'll mention, which is noted on the slide, is that you should please email the completed form to Andrea at alhansen@umn.edu by November 5th. By turning in that agreement, that allows Andrea and I to know that you've actually met and had a discussion with your partner. If we don't get it, Andrea will start following up, and she is very persistent, I can attest. So with those few business things out of the way, I'm now going to turn things over to Andrea and our esteemed panelists to share some of their tips on how to get off to a great start this year with your partner.
Thanks, Joelle. So we are so happy to have with us tonight 2 mentor pairs from last year, here to share their advice and tips on how to really make a successful partnership. Our first pair is Stephen Cherusharil and Sam Mishler. Stephen has mentored for 3 years. He graduated in 2018 in Industrial and Systems Engineering and spent 2 years in consulting at West Monroe Partners before recently leaving and joining the acquisitions team at Thraso, a startup that buys Amazon businesses. His student partner was Sam Mishler, who is a junior studying Industrial and Systems Engineering with a focus in supply chain and a minor in management. Sam enjoys volunteering and mentoring upcoming ISYE students. Our second pair is Marie Manor and Sophia Manicor. Marie has a PhD in computer science and is a data scientist at 3M in the personal safety division, and this is her 2nd year mentoring. Her student partner was Sophia Manicor. Sophia is a senior, double majoring in computer science and mathematics, and last summer she had a software engineering internship at Caterpillar, where she will also be working once she graduates. So welcome to our 4 panelists, and thank you so much for being here. You can all turn on your videos and unmute yourselves. So we have a few prepared questions we're going to tackle first, but then we are going to take audience questions. So if you have a question for our panelists, please put it in the Q&A box at the bottom of your screen. And you can also comment on people's questions. If you have advice to share, that's a great place to put it. And you can also upvote people's questions, and that will help us know kind of what's most popular. All right, let's get started. So for all of you, the first question is, what was the best thing about last year's mentoring program? And I'm going to start with Marie.
And then I turned my video off instead of answering. So I loved all of last year, honestly. I had 2 students and they both were prepared on every single meeting. They got in touch when they said they would. They knew what they were going to do. We always had an agenda. They followed up. They were extremely easy to work with and took feedback, gave me feedback, knew what they were about and knew what they wanted to accomplish in the next semester and year. So I thought the entire experience was really great, but I had really awesome students, so I was kind of spoiled in that way.
Thanks, Marie. All right, Stephen, what was the best part for you?
Yeah, similar sentiment as Marie in terms of just Sam being on top of everything throughout the year from like a communication and accountability standpoint. But for me, it was really seeing him realize a lot of the goals early on. You know, you start the relationship and it's usually a little bit more, you don't know each other as well, and you start to learn more about each other and what you want to get out of the relationship. And then seeing it over the course of the year, seeing him over the course of the year accomplish all the goals they set out to do is really fulfilling. And I think makes the experience what it is. So that was the best part of the program for me.
Great, thanks, Stephen. All right, Sam, what about you?
Yeah, I would say similar to, from the mentor's perspective, as a mentee, the program was extremely beneficial for me in being able to foster a professional relationship. Obviously, as someone up and coming in college, I was really anxious to be able to learn what some of the knowledge I was learning in the classroom could be applied in terms of industry implementation. And additionally, just getting to grow in a relationship with Steve and hearing about his experience in consulting and how we were able to set goals with one another together and kind of forecast how the next, 2-3 years of both of our lives would look.
Great, thanks, Sam. All right, Sophia, how about you?
Yeah, similar to Sam, I would say one of the best parts was definitely building the relationship with Marie and just like, seeing that grow and us becoming more friendly with each other and being able to talk and just having her there as someone like throughout my junior year was when I had the mentor, like a bunch of new questions were coming up, things I didn't even think of when I first signed up for the mentor program about like where I wanted to go with my career, what I wanted to do, and like how to get there. And it was just nice having that relationship already sort of built from the previous months and being able to just rely on her and kind of ask her questions as they came up in my life. That was really important for me.
Can I add one more piece to that?
Absolutely.
So I think my shining moment as a mentor had nothing to do with me. It was when both of my mentees got computer science software jobs or internships. And I was like, my students are the best. And I was very proud. So that was like the cherry on top for sure.
That's great. No, I think that gives everybody a lot of great stuff to look forward to this year.
And I have to add on top of that, Marie, because I want to congratulate Sam because he told me today that he accepted an internship at West Monroe Partners, which was the firm that I worked at for 2 years prior to this. So that was kind of a nice full circle thing to hear. So,
and I'll just add on top of that, coming into the mentorship program, I didn't even know what West Monroe Partners was. And Stephen was the one who continued to just kind of invest my interest in that and help me move forward with that. So that definitely comes full circle indeed.
Well, that's wonderful news. Thanks. That's definitely what we love to hear. So our first question is for the mentors, and it's from a mentor's perspective, what do you think is the most important thing a student can do to really set up in the very beginning a successful relationship? And we'll start with Stephen.
Yeah, I think we mentioned it before, but I think it's, the communication accountability part of it is really important, right? It's on both parties, but on the mentee, especially given the mentor sometimes might be caught up with a lot of different things from personal life or professional life standpoint, to just try to really keep that cadence going in terms of checking in before meetings and just making sure that you guys are prepared to meet. And that's one. But then I think the other thing too is always keep pushing your mentor to help you kind of realize your goals and come, I would say, prepared with things that you want to like talk about in each meeting. So always have kind of a plan or agenda of what you want to tackle that meeting. And it's okay, I think, early on to maybe have more open-ended goals, but try to drive those into more defined goals that you can start working at as you progress through your relationship and through the program as a whole. So
That's great, Stephen. Thanks for that. Marie, what about you?
I want to absolutely underline everything Stephen said as far as communication being important, checking in, having an agenda for your meetings, but also being able to be flexible after, okay, well, Sophia wasn't quite sure what she wanted to do. So after choosing a branch, okay, well, now we're going to work towards that instead. So being able to be flexible and still work towards really important goals, even if they maybe did shift from the beginning of the program, I think was incredibly important. And being able to have that very conversational tone and be able to text each other and say, okay, well, what did you think about this? And being able to be informal with our communications, I think was helpful, along with the agendas, the goals, everything that we've talked about.
I think that's great advice. Definitely communication in any relationship is going to be key, especially starting a relationship with a stranger. So that's wonderful. All right, so I'm going to ask the students the same question. From your perspective, what do you think a student can do to really set themselves up for success? And let's start with Sophia.
So I think it's very important to make sure that you are not afraid to communicate with them, because this is the mentor program. They're here because they want to be, and so there's no need to be like afraid of asking them questions or like asking to meet more or anything that you really need, because that's one of the main key reasons they're here, is to help you with things that you need. I would also say be clear kind of about what type of relationship if you want like a really professional one so that you get used to working with that environment, like you can kind of try to explain that to your mentor. Or if you want like a more casual one, that's sort of what me and Marie went with, where like, you know, you can text each other or just email each other just way more casually and not have to worry about sort of the pretense of professionalism. Then that's something that you should explain to your mentor as well. Basically, just communication is key, and don't be afraid to reach out.
Thanks, Sophia. What about you, Sam?
Yeah, I would definitely continue to echo that. I would say like any relationship, it definitely it takes effort on both parties. And for me, that effort really was kind of came to fruition in just not being afraid to be challenged. I remember, the first time that I had coffee with Steven, we were already kind of talking about like how I had ever done a goal setting session before, or had I ever, gone to various events or things that he was involved in when he was in CSE. And so for me, it was just the willingness to say like, I haven't done this yet, but yes, I would really like to. And I'd love to kind of hear your perspective on it and kind of help you coach me through it. So I think just a willingness to jump in with both feet and not be afraid to be challenged is the biggest thing that I think you can do to really set up a pattern of success.
That's great. Thanks, Sam. Yeah, I think all of that is super important for all of the students on tonight. Definitely clear communication. Don't be afraid. Your mentor is here because they want to help you. That's why they're doing this. And be flexible. Be open to new experiences and new challenges. So thanks for that. So we're going to turn it and ask, we'll start with students this time, but ask, what can a mentor do to set themselves up for success? So I'm going to start with Sophia again. From a student's perspective, what do you think?
I would say for a mentor, obviously same things as student, be open to communication, be open to the type of relationship that they want to build. But also, yeah, like how Sam was talking about being challenged, don't be afraid to push your student or like I know in my experience, I didn't really know exactly where I wanted to go with my degrees and also what exactly I wanted to gain out of the mentorship program. I just had like very broad ideas, and Marie definitely helped me narrow that down. So maybe think of ideas or what, you know, you would also like to learn if you were a student. It was really helpful.
Great, thanks. What about you, Sam?
Yeah, I would say for me, the biggest thing that really made a difference was just the persona that Stephen was able to portray in someone that definitely cared about my professional development and wanted to talk about that, but also was really just very much concerned with balancing that with my personal interests as well, and that of his own. I remember, we'd get in conversations about, various things that were going on with school and with his job, but then we'd also talk about what we were doing in our free time. I remember Stephen talking about, him getting into meditation practices and preparing for, things in his life and traveling and all these things. And it was definitely just very motivating to see the life come as much more than just like a work relationship, but actually just someone that really was a friend, and kind of see that grow. And that definitely enabled me to be able to open up about my life a little bit more. And that was definitely beneficial as we kind of grew closer over the year. So.
Great, thanks, Sam. So I'm going to ask mentors the same question. What can a mentor do to set themselves up for this success and set this relationship up for success? And let's start with Marie.
I would say that one of the things that I wanted to know at least was why the students chose me, because I didn't quite realize this when I initially got matched up, but they get to look at all of your profiles and choose you. So they picked you for a reason, and if you know what that is, you can play to the strengths that they were trying to get to when they chose you. So their participation is voluntary. So if you can work with them, they're giving up all their busy studying time for you as their mentor. So work with them and make sure that you're helping them, basically. So lean on your network when you can. If you can give them work tours, or if you can set them up for informational interviews, or do things that you wish people did for you, or things that you loved when people did for you. I loved when people would take me out to dinner and be like, how are you? Let me introduce you to somebody. So I tried to make sure to do that with my students. So read the newsletter for events and make sure that you know kind of how the program is structured, so you can just play along with the program, because Andrea and Joel have a lot of experience with this and they know how this works best. So if you can just kind of follow the guidelines, that also helps a lot.
Thank you. I love the plug for the newsletter. All right, Stephen, what are your thoughts on mentors setting themselves up for success?
Yeah, it's really just taking the time to invest in the student and listen to what their goals are. I think sometimes, right, it aligns perfectly where your career aligns with what their interests are and you can directly help them, but sometimes it might not be as connected. So it's really important to take the time to like learn about how you can help them. And that might take time on your end to learn more about their interest, and like Marie said, tapping into your network to help connect them, or just figuring out those goals with them. So it's really a team effort. And additionally, another thing I think is to keep the conversation fluid, right? Don't make it always on the mentee to always reach out to you, check in on them. If maybe they're going through an interview or they had a hard test, send those texts that show that you remember that you're kind of, you remember those like tidbits from the conversations that you're having, just to keep the conversation relationship fluid. And then I think an important thing that we did, I didn't do it my first year with my mentee, but I did this year, was I also did goal setting with him too, just to kind of share in the experience with him as well. And I think kind of opening up with my goals shows that everyone's kind of has their own, 5-year, 10-year plan, and being able to kind of share where you're progressing or where you're finding challenges can help each other kind of navigate and learn from those experiences. So you learn just as much from your mentee as they learn from you a lot of times. So it's a great two-way relationship if you kind of strive to make it that way.
That's great. Thanks. I think that's all great advice. Like Joelle said, this year especially, being flexible, being open to what what your mentee really needs, and letting them kind of drive that portion of it is always great to hear. So that's our prepared questions. So we're going to take some audience questions now. And again, if you have questions for the panelists, please put them in that Q&A box. We've got a good 10 to 12 minutes to take questions. So our first question is, what is a topic you think partners should not forget to talk about? And I'm going to start with mentors for this one. So Marie, do you have anything that you think is a must-do topic for pairs?
I'm kind of at a loss. If you make your goals and you know what you're doing, I think you should just work towards them. I guess ask how your student is doing, make sure that they're still okay. Be a person first, and then maybe worry about goals, because it's going to be a really, really awful year for students, I think. I know that I'm terrible at distance learning if there's not a human in front of me teaching me stuff. So yeah, maybe just ask how they are first, and then worry about your actual mentoring goals, but then also have goals. I guess those are the two things I would talk about.
Great. What about our students, Sam or Sophia? Do either of you have anything that you think is a must-have topic? Sam?
Yeah, so I'll just kind of, Stephen mentioned earlier, taking the time to invest in what your student is interested in. I think as a student, it's important to not forget to invest in what your mentor does. Have an idea of, where they work and what they do as a career, even if it's nothing to do with what your interests are in. I think it can feed for really good conversation, and actually can help develop your own personal interests in whatever direction that might enact. And so for sure, just taking time at some point during the year to having an in-depth conversation as to what that mentor does, and just piquing your interest in that topic, I think is really cool and definitely important.
That's great. Sophia and Stephen, anything you want to add?
Nothing major. I think Sam mentioned earlier, just, pay attention to the personal life too, and checking in on or just learning more about what their hobbies are and what their personal interests are. And I think a lot of times that helps drive the conversations and make them more, not as professionally focused. And sometimes you might also be going down a rabbit hole, focusing maybe on interviewing or careers at one point or school. So just make sure you take the time to pull away from that and check in on the other facets of their life. Are they being involved in school, or how are grades going? How are classes going? Because especially in CSC, that's usually a pretty big time suck and really difficult for students. And they don't always share a lot of times what's going on that side. So.
Thanks. Sophia, do you have any thoughts? You don't have to if you.
Oh, I was just gonna add maybe obviously checking in and talking about personal life, but also if you're not comfortable with that, talking about something that you can connect on, especially a lot of these, everybody went to the U, so you can connect on professors or just classes, or even just concepts that you've learned, something to kind of talk about with your mentor that's not directly focused on your career aspirations, and more just having a connection with someone oh, I had this class, I thought this about it. It's just something nice to talk about.
Yeah, that's great. I will say some of our mentors are not alums. We have a lot of great volunteers from industry, but they all went to college and they all had that experience in common. And so you can definitely still talk about what that's like and connect there. Okay, so our second question from the audience is, and this is really probably more geared towards our mentors. Do you have any advice for helping a student get hands-on experience during COVID, when many labs are not allowing undergrads and lots of internships are remote? So Marie and Stephen, any thoughts on that?
I'm going to be wildly skewed because in computer science, we're the kind of people that can work from home. So I would worry a lot more about building your network in an internship and meeting your lab mates more than the work, I guess, because to me, the network is the really important piece of the internship and the people that you meet. So I would worry more about lacking that than hands-on experience. But again, I'm I'm always at my computer. That's how I work. So I don't know about actual lab work.
Yeah, I don't know how hands-on you can get, but just trying to get as creative as possible with remote in terms of like video, ways of demonstrating things within your job, or just really informational videos that your work might provide that you can talk through a student with, especially if they're really interested in like the company that you're working on or the field that you're working in. It's just maybe recording kind of a demonstration or something like that versus doing it in person. So.
Yeah, this year is new for all of us, and for many of our mentors, going to be the first time mentoring virtually. We do have mentors who mentor from out of state who do this a lot. So a great place if you're kind of struggling as a mentor with how to do something you would normally do with your students and want some ideas is our LinkedIn group. You can go and you can pose a question to all the other mentors and students on there and see, somebody who's mentored long distance has some ideas on that too. So our next question is, what adjustments did you need to make midway through the mentoring relationship that were different than what you thought at the beginning of the year? So if your goals changed and you had to shift, just what kind of maybe course correcting did you have to do in the middle of the year? And I'll see, anyone have a thought on that?
I have a few. One's more tactical. It was, we were meeting in person most of the time, and I know some people may and some people might not. But I thought when we did switch to remote, and I think we started with a phone call the first time, but then we switched to Zoom, and I think doing the face-to-face interaction made kind of just the relationship or like the conversations more fluid. So if you can, I recommend, hosting Zoom conversations versus doing phone call. But I understand that's not always possible. That too, I mean, I'll kind of speak on behalf of Sam, but his internship was impacted by COVID last year. So it was just, brainstorming and thinking through different ideas for how he can kind of put together like a meaningful summer experience. So things happen that kind of changed the plans that you might have had. So it's just helping them think through those decisions as they come.
Great, thanks. Anyone else? Sam?
Yeah, I'll just speak a little bit to that because I think Stephen had a really strong impact on that for me. In particular, just kind of portraying the willingness to keep an open mind and suggesting just kind of some practical things to do, LinkedIn learning, various things that you could do like on your own time, and also like finding other opportunities. So that was something that we were able to really work through together, and that he was able to really kind of keep me motivated and focused to, pursue something and still get a meaningful summer. So.
Great, thanks. Maria and Sophia, anything that you kind of had to change throughout or that was different than what you were expecting when you started the program?
I would just say last year, obviously, like at the beginning, I wanted to do a lot of like resume review, interview prep, etc. And then once I got like an offer for an internship, I sort of wanted to switch gears a lot, but Marie was very accommodating for that and like helped me set up different things like for informational interviews and also just like meetings with her to talk about like what it's like actually working in the industry because it's not something that you get to experience at college. And so I think that was really helpful, like just being able to switch gears into like a less like focus on helping me build my career and more just like learning about what being a software engineer actually is.
Great. Anything you want to add, Marie?
Sort of just kind of in parentheses to what Sophia said, as far as be prepared to abandon previous things, because like she said, we could talk about resumes, we can talk about interviews, but okay, well now that's done. So there's another 4 months of other content that we can talk about. So be prepared to have something else that you are willing to pursue and work through, even if it's completely unexpected. So just be ready to pivot, that's all.
That's great. So we did just get one that I think is a great question for our two mentors. And I know that this is often something that students struggle with because this is a new experience for most of them, unless they did it last year. So mentors, how often do you like to hear from your mentee? What is too much and what is too little? Why doesn't you start with Stephen on that one?
I think early on you want it to be higher touch for sure. And I can't remember if the recommended was every 2 weeks or 1 month, but I know Sam and I had a very like strict cadence, what we stuck to, and keeping that cadence is important too. So not trying to not reschedule as much as possible early on is a good way to kind of like build the habit of the conversations. And once you've built that habit, it's much easier to just, make it more informal or just allow for more flexibility, because from then, after I think the 6-month program, we've continued our relationship and it's been more texting, but then setting up a call when, something big's coming up that we either of us want to talk through or catch up on. So I think early on through the program, you should really stick to the cadence, because that helps build the habit, and then keep it more flexible after that.
Great. So I will say that we say 2 times a month.
Yep.
At the least is how often you should be in contact with your partner. Marie, what do you think is too much or too little?
I agree with Stephen as far as keep the initial cadence, and then whatever ends up working between you and your mentor or mentee is great. So they might have a couple 2 busy days where they're like, all right, now I'm frantically writing my resume, or I need to redo my website or something. So yeah, okay, we're going to text every couple hours, and that's fine. And that's good. But then I know it's finals week, so I don't expect to hear from you for 2 weeks or 3 weeks. And I'll just check in and make sure that you lived through your finals, and that's great. So just be prepared, because life needs to be very flexible. But yeah, and definitely work on a good relationship early on so that you can kind of devolve into more informal conversation, if that's the best way to stay in touch, which for both of my mentees it was. And then again, scheduling like more regular calls if you need to talk about something that's just, you need to wave your hands or get excited and shout about it or something. Yeah, go ahead and schedule a video call.
Great. That's great. And again, like Sophia said, your mentors are here to help you. That's why they're doing this. They want to hear from you. So there probably is too much, but I'd say it will be hard for you to reach it as a student. All right, so our next question, and this is probably, again, going to be mostly for our mentors, though students, if you want to chime in, how do you use mistakes that students make as teaching opportunities? If that's something that's come up, if your students were perfect last year and never made any mistakes. But we're thinking, I think, things about like, canceling a meeting without letting you know, or not following up after an informational interview, those types of things.
I would say Sam was pretty flawless in communication last year, but I will say I think my first year, my mentee, I think people experience this throughout the process, is sometimes once you've accomplished goals, the communication might die down a little bit. So I think the teachable moments are, it's kind of refocusing and helping them set new goals to kind of reinvigorate the relationship. And if it's like a constant thing, it's, it's maybe just showcasing and telling them how those kinds of habits can translate in the professional world after that, and kind of like using that as an analogy just to the situation, because there's an investment from both sides. So it's good to be clear in communication as well, from that point of view. But I wouldn't say I had to do that with Sam this year. So
Thanks, Stephen. Do you have any thoughts, Marie?
My students were also really great. I never had anybody cancel or not get back to me at all. So I try to just be open as far as options. Like, okay, well, this went wrong, so we can either do this or we can address it like this. Which do you prefer? And just kind of go with that, because we're all adults here. There's no reason to get particularly angry or upset. It's just, okay, well, if you made a mistake, let's just address it very clearly and then just move on, and it's fine.
Great. Okay, our next question is, Also for mentors. Mentors, can you give an example of what you learned from your students and kind of what Stephen talked about, that two-way nature of the relationship? Stephen, do you have thoughts on that?
Yeah, I'm trying to think. I think it's resilience for me. In the case of Sam, right, his internship was impacted by COVID. You know, he spent a lot of time and work towards trying to get one as a sophomore, which is a really difficult thing to do, and he was able to get it. And then, like many other students, it was, you know, the role was redacted as due to COVID, but he kept his enthusiasm up and he wasn't being down by it. And I was actually going through a similar point where I was making the transition to my next job as well. So kind of seeing him bounce back from that and be able to get like a meaningful experience out of the summer, and now kind of come, as I said before, get an internship that he really wanted for the next summer. That really, I think a lot of those actions kind of translated to me and really motivated me too. So yeah.
That's great. Marie, any thoughts on that?
I just learned a lot about my mentees as people and just how great they were and how different their undergrad experience was than mine. But I went to a private school. I didn't go to the U of M, and I was a lot more shy than both of my mentees. So I was more of just, I wish I was more like you guys when I was your age. So it was more just kind of being proud of them as people.
Sorry, trouble finding my unmute button there. That's great. I think, yeah, those are great things. I will also say that I've definitely heard from mentors that one of the biggest thing that they learn in this is really how to be a good listener. That's a big part of being a mentor, is how to be a good listener. So I think we've got one more question that we're going to get to pretty quickly. This is a pretty big question, so let's keep it to just a couple of points. But for both mentors and students, how do you build your professional network? Why don't we start with students on this one? So Sophia.
Well, one thing I could say, this is maybe not as related to the mentor program, but well, sort of, is to just be engaging with everyone and take every opportunity given to you. Like Marie offered to set up me with some informational interviews, or to me and her would go out to dinner with someone that she knew from work. And even if it wasn't like maybe directly what I wanted to look into, it's still like a great opportunity to hear someone else's career, and you'll always learn something. And so I would just say, take every opportunity given to you, and also be willing to make those for yourself. Like when you're working, make sure to reach out to people if you feel some sort of connection that you can create with them.
Great. All right, Marie, any thoughts?
Yeah.
As a professional?
It's very, so my tactic is always to ask somebody about themselves, because everyone loves to talk about themselves and everybody loves to talk about what they do. So just listen. People are cool. So just take the opportunity to grab 5 minutes with them. If you need to bring them coffee to get them to want to come talk to you, do that. But be open to grabbing people's time. Most people are very friendly and very willing to talk about what they do and how they live and just their work. So listen for that and just try to take advantage and just introduce yourself, be friendly. Everybody just loves to network usually. So just be the initiator and don't be afraid to be that initiator, because half the time the other person is also a little scared to talk to you. So just talk first and then ask them about themselves.
All right, that's great. That's really all the time we have for these questions. I will also say, for students especially and mentors, a great way to build your professional network is through this program. You're building it right now. And the LinkedIn group and the Maroon and Gold Network are also great ways to reach out to alumni who have already raised their hand. They want to help students and they want to help you. And that's a great way to build your professional network as well. So thank you to our panelists so much for being here. That was great. I wish we could talk for another hour. If you asked a question we weren't able to get to, we will reach out individually and help you in whatever way we can and get you that answer. So we're almost done. We're going to move on to a few more things before we close out. So some upcoming events and sorry. So we have a lot of events this year that we are putting on to support you. We know this year is weird. Virtual mentoring is weird in some ways. And so we're doing a lot to try to support you with that. Upcoming events are listed in that PDF CSE Mentor Program Handbook that Joelle talked about. And we will always share any program events, any upcoming department, university events, college events with you in our CSE Mentor Program newsletter that you'll get in your emails. So on the screen, there are just a few events coming up that I want to touch really quickly on. Our first monthly pairs event on November 19th at 5 p.m. is on elevator pitches. We will have a mentor-only event where a presenter from the Career Center will share with you what they can do to support your students so that you're aware of those resources. We want you to keep in mind that we have a December 10th, our second monthly pairs event on informational interviews, which is a great way to to build your professional network. And then save the date in late January, we'll have our mid-year program, which is kind of our big mid-year program to get everybody back in the swing of things. Like I said, we'll send that e-newsletter every month that will have lots of events, lots of things you can do together with your partner. And we do want to just note that we know winter break can be challenging for students. If you're, away from classes, away from school, you may not be able to meet regularly with your mentor, and that's okay, but just make sure you're communicating really clearly with your mentor before you go on break, what your schedule is going to be like, and that you get back in the swing of things as soon as classes start up again. That drop-off point can really hurt pairs. So just be in communication, like we said a lot of times tonight, with your partner so that you know when spring semester starts back up, you're ready to start meeting again if you aren't able to meet over winter break. All right, I'm going to pass it back to Joelle, and she's going to share some resources.
Hi, everyone. I'm back, and we have reached the end. The resources are the last thing we have to cover, and then we'll send you all on your way. So first and foremost, as I said right at the top, Andrea and I are your best resource if you're ever having trouble or questions. Our contact information is going to be on the next slide, so please do not hesitate to reach out to us for any reason. If you're having any trouble, the sooner you reach out to us, the better prepared we'll be to jump in and help you out. So please use us. We're here to help, and we want to make sure that you all are set up for success. The next resource, which Andrea just mentioned, is our monthly e-newsletter. Andrea spends a ton of time each month calling the university resources and other resources to put together a really robust e-newsletter for all of you that has our updates about our program, of course, but it also has upcoming events, activities you could do together, discussion topic ideas, maybe articles you can read and talk about together. So please take a moment when you get that each month to give it a look. Especially if you're in need of ideas for goals you might set or things you might talk about at your next meeting. We try to really have something for everyone, no matter where students are, in terms of career exploration or I already found my job, how do I start strong? We try to have something for everyone in that e-newsletter. Another great resource is the PDF handbook, which I mentioned earlier. We put together all of the resource materials that we think are the most important for starting strong and hitting the ground running. So things like virtual meeting tips, mentoring phases, the partnership agreement and SMART goals, all together right there in one PDF handbook for you. If you've been in the program in the past, it's what we used to actually print out and give you in the live kickoff, but with some additional new things added this year for the virtual context. We have way more resources available to you, though, than what's in that handbook on our mentor materials website, which is at cse.umn.edu/mentor materials. And I'll mention, I think Andrea just put it in the chat, we'll be sharing a link to all of these resources in the email that you'll get with the link to the recording of this event. So no worries about writing them all down right now. We'll be sending them out to you in an easy to access way soon. But some of the key things we have on that mentor materials page is a student how-to guide. So students, we've put together some sample language for you about how to reach out to someone for an informational interview, or how to reach out to your mentor for the first time if you haven't done so already. How to tell your mentor you need to reschedule a meeting, how to write a professional thank you note. Things we thought you might encounter this year, we've tried to predict and anticipate and throw in that guide for you. We also have campus resources. This is helpful to everyone, but maybe in particular to mentors who might have questions about where to direct their students. So we've rounded up campus resources from across the U. So like international student support, mental health resources, academic support, financial aid information, all kinds of things can be found on the resources page. In addition, on that mentor materials page, we of course have recordings of past webinars and events. Another thing that's a great resource for you is the Maroon and Gold Network, which Andrea mentioned with respect to building your professional network. The Maroon and Gold Network is the university's sort of like a special LinkedIn, but just for the university community. So it's for alumni and friends. So if you're a mentor, but you're not a grad of the U, you can still sign up for the Maroon and Gold Network. And it's specifically designed around sort of one-off advice seeking. So rather than LinkedIn, where it's more of a professional focus, it's more focused on seeking advice. And when people sign up, they can say what kind of advice they're willing to give, like moving to my city, or what I do in my job every day, or those kinds of things. It's got very robust search capabilities. So students, if you're looking for someone that works in a particular location you might want to move to, or for a specific company or so forth, you can search on the Maroon and Gold Network and find those people and reach out to them. And everyone on there has raised their hand and said that they want to help you. So you should not be shy or nervous about reaching out. They're all friendly folks who want to help you. And finally, the CSE Mentor Program LinkedIn group, which Andrea also mentioned, we'll include a link to this in every e-newsletter, but it's for all mentors and students in the program this year and over the last couple of years. So if you have a question, you want to throw it on there, it allows anybody who's part of the group to respond to you. Students, it's a great way to reach out to other mentors who might have a job or work experience in an area you want to learn more about. Mentors, if you have a question and you're not sure how to answer it for your student, maybe you could find somebody through the LinkedIn group who might have some additional advice they could provide. So reminder, all the links to these resources will be included in the follow-up email that you will receive with a link to the recording of this program. It'll go to all participants, not just those who signed up tonight. So we'll be sending all of these out as soon as we get the recording up on the college's YouTube channel. And the most important resource is Andrea and I's contact information. So it's on the screen here. Andrea includes it in the bottom of every email she sends. So please don't hesitate to reach out to us for any reason, with any problem or question you have. Like I said, we're here to help you. And please use us as a resource. And with that, I think our formal presentation is concluded. So I want to again thank you all so much for making the time to participate in the program this year and for attending tonight. I hope you found some useful tips to set you off on your relationship for the coming 6 months. Thanks again. Have a great evening and have a wonderful year with your mentoring partner. Thanks again.